Hi everyone, it's Cammy here. Thank you so much for listening to this week's Heart and Hand. If you happen to listen to the shows on the Apple, Android, or Spotify platforms, could you please give Heart and Hand a follow on there? They may also ask you to write a wee review, and if you could write us a really good one, we would massively appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hi everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is Cameron Bell. This is your extra show for the week, making what I hope you'll all find a welcome return after an international break. And one thing that I can guarantee, that even if you don't like the sound of my nonsense, you will definitely enjoy the dulcet tones and common sense approach of my guest, my very good friend, Mr. Andy McGowan. Andy, thank you for joining me on Extra.
Thanks for inviting me, Cammy. That sounds exceedingly boring.
Not
that
at
that
all.
is
Listen, you are there's nothing wrong with the common sense approach, and we're going to be talking about that in quite a bit. So no, definitely a big compliment in there. Let me tell you.
so. What if I want to go nuts today? You've ruined it for me, can you now?
Go nuts if you want. I'll just simply edit out the pod and then just use some
5
backfill from
minute pod.
previous shows that you've been in and stuff, and just like drop them in. Like the way they do the overdub in The Simpsons and all that. That's just what it'll be in. Do you know what I mean? So, Andy, do you think that we'll be at Livingston at the weekend? That's just what I'll just put it into. But all joking aside, Andy, how good is it to be now out in the back end of the international break and just having that nonsense done and out the way?
Oh, do you not like watching Scotland, Cammy? Are you some kind of anti-nationalist person? That's
Apparently,
disgraceful.
yeah, apparently you have to be. So if you just don't, if international football doesn't tick your box, then I'm definitely in that camp. Meaningless friendlies that I don't think you really get anything out of. I just don't really understand it either. And fair enough
Uh,
if you're trying to define a squad going into a tournament, but I don't really know if that's what we saw from Scotland. So
hmm.
nah,
Nah, I'm kidding on. I could not care less about international breaks. They are the blight of football. And did I watch any? I think I watched a wee bit of the Scotland Northern Ireland game just to, you know, how can I put this, Cammy? The Building
hope
National
Northern
National.
Ireland win.
No, not really. No, I'm not that bad, but I couldn't care less, right? I could not care less, but I thought it was ironic that the Tartan Army booed the national anthem and then they get beat off a team that it should never be getting beat off.
Nah, not
So
at all.
small pleasures, not that.
Yeah, no, I'm the same as you. I just think that I used to. I mean, don't get me wrong, right? And I actually kind of do miss caring a lot about Scotland, and I won't bore people listening with all the kind of political side of it and stuff as well, which I think drives a lot of the Rangers support away from. And there's plenty of Rangers fans who still go and listen. All power to them, right? If that's what ticks your box, then you go ahead and do it and just enjoy yourself. But I think for me, Andy, the big thing more than anything else is I just feel disconnected for the national team now. I just
Uh,
don't know um, if I really still get that sense of belonging, and I don't think I felt it for nearly the business end of 20 odd years. I really genuinely don't.
Cammy, we could have a series about this, but I don't know. All I started with Souness, and now I want to like the national team. I would quite like to go along someday, but you can't force that kind of emotional tie. It needs to be there, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, and they're multiple, it's just died a death. And I think there's a lot of Rangers support are in that place. And if you're no, then that's absolutely fine. We're not sitting here saying that you shouldn't be. That's not what we're saying. It's just there's a strange dynamic that psychologists and all sorts social commentators would be able to dissect, and it would actually be pretty interesting. Can we write that down for me? Would you? Idea for show: studying why Rangers fans can't be arsed with Scotland national team.
Yeah, listen, I think, yeah, I get it. I think we all want to be able to try and get back to it, and it'd be nice. But listen, maybe one day we can hope for it, Andy. I always like to try and remain optimistic within this, and more importantly, I think that by and large, the international break served three purposes. The first one is it gave our players a little bit of kind of rest and downtime, which I think it's fair to say had been needed going into it. We appear, touch wood, the only injury concern, we obviously are recording this on Thursday. Press conference hasn't been yet to have any kind of injury confirmed yet from the club, but we think that the only one thus far has been Ridvan Yilmaz. And that seems to, again, touch wood, seems to be not as serious as initially feared, which looks like he may miss out on Saturday against Hibs, Andy, but he hopefully will be available for the Old Firm game next weekend. The second purpose, I think, more than anything else, is it gives our players a chance to be able to go out and play for their country, right? And all joking aside, because I know like we like to have a wee laugh and a giggle, they still, it still means everything to them, and I totally understand it. But I think it's great for players to be able to try and get. It's almost like a validation for some of these players to be able to go out and feature for their national team based on how well that they've been playing. And as I say, that's why it's so disappointing for Yilmaz, because he had been playing well. I think, merited his call up, and I think that certainly Turkey are keen to be able to try and keep him involved. And I think that, when you heard the manager talking after he got injured, you could hear the disappointment that was there. Obviously, Cyril Dessers, away playing for Nigeria, scored in the first game, should have scored in the second. I don't know if you've had a chance to see that opportunity that he had where he was through on goal, and I think the ball landed in New Zealand. But again, you talk about that. John Suter, obviously, I think played across in Holland. So listen, all in, I think it's good for these players to go and make those representations.
It's good for Rangers. So although we're denigrating the international break, professional players value it. I think there's a underlying factor that we need to recognise in that if you're an international, there's valuations for a start should be higher. So beyond all that, I think it's good for players that are Rangers to enhance their international careers, because what it shows is that you can come to Rangers and it's not going to affect your international career. Whereas the kind of backwater of Scotland, the common wisdom is that sometimes if you come here, it's not going to be exactly positive for that kind of thing. So that's why I was wanting Butland in English squad. I thought that'd have been a major reversal of that theory. That's why I'm delighted young Yilmaz is in the Turkey squad, because Turkey's a big country. There are a lot of players to select from. So for us to have the Turkey left back and his age and everything else, that's good for his profile. It's good for Rangers. It's good for potential sell on. And for Suter, it's Suter's had a really good past 3 months, and he's knocking the door for a start in Germany. Believe it or not, I think he should be one of the ones he's really considering when you look at how he played over in Benfica and at home at Benfica. I thought he was outstanding at home against Benfica. He's got a lot of attributes. And that's a player we bought for a Bosman, and there'll be players looking at him. When you look what his brother went for example, you look at some other kind of basic centre-halves go for, he is a player of potential for this trading model we're talking about. So, aye, a total volte-face there for me. I quite like the international break now, Cammy. It's good for business.
You've changed your mind on it. The business end of 3 minutes. Listen, yeah, absolutely. As you say, I think it's good for those players to get that recognition. You move to Scotland to look at, obviously, Fabio Silva played for the Portuguese under-23s and
Yeah,
was he's pretty prominent for them as well. He played through the middle, and I think he bagged himself a couple of goals as well. And I think we're quick to put Scottish football down. I do understand that, and where it sits on a kind of global radar for international call-ups, but the fact that players can come here and they can still get selected. And I'll tell you something as well, Andy, as much as you mentioned Jack Butland playing for it, I bet you after that horror show for Jordan Pickford for the first Belgium goal, I think Gareth Southgate was probably wishing he'd picked Jack Butland at that moment and all.
I didn't see it. I was watching something very benign on the telly at the same time. So, I must admit, I was a wee bit surprised on the noises whether he was going to be selected. He was worthy of selection, and who's the other goalie was in there? I know he called up the under-21 Trafford, but who was the other one? Was it Pope? Was Pope's not back yet?
No, I don't think so. I can't remember who the third one was because I'm sure he chopped and changed it. Was it the boy at Burnley?
Ramsdale? Oh, aye, it was.
Yeah.
No, it was Trafford. Anyway, should have been there if you're listening, Gareth.
Yeah, he should have been. Yeah. The third thing, and I've got to get this in, Andy, that was really great for us during international break was that we had our first ever Heart and Hand live show in London's West End with one Paul Gascoigne. I'll not bore you guys with it too much. The great news is that you're going to get an opportunity to hear it. We never record our live shows because we want to enhance the experience for the people who attend. However, it was not organised by ourselves. It was actually organised by our executive producers who bring you this pod and Monday's flagship. And all I can tell everyone, if you haven't had an opportunity to hear about this on our Patreon site, is that Gaza's in great form. He looks great. He's in good health. He's got great people looking after him now who have got his interests at heart. And I don't think that's always been the case. But Andy, more than anything else, I think it's just great to see that we know where he's been and we know how low he was close to getting. And I know you've not had an opportunity to be able to listen to it yet. The show has just been confirmed by Gaz's people, and then we're going to release it, and everyone will get a chance to hear it. All I can say is please don't miss it because some of the things he comes out with, some of the stories he's got. It was the easiest live show we've ever done, Andy, because we're just sitting up there almost giggling like the 14-year-olds that we we were when he signed, and he's just in great spirits, which is fantastic to see. And hopefully, we'll get some more opportunities to speak to him and stuff in the future. But it's just fantastic seeing him in such condition.
Well, me and you did. We recorded the Journey to Fame the other night, so that'll be out shortly, and it was about Gaza and Loudrop. And I would encourage everybody to listen to that to hear me and Cammy wax lyrical about the genius. And I'll be honest, in the run up to the show, I was a wee bit worried because you're reading about him in the paper, and he'd kind of lapsed back into bad habits. And the thing with Gaza is that he will never see his likes again, will we? That's a player playing for Rangers that will be spoken or should be spoken in the same breath as the likes of Baxter and Loudrop. And um, I think he knows that. I think he knows the esteem he's held in with Rangers fans. And I think we know how he views his time at Rangers because it was effectively the most productive and joyous part of his career. He'd done glimpses of similar at Tottenham, but it was too short lived. I think at Rangers it was the right club at the right time for the right player. So really, really good for Heart and Hand to get that, and it shows where we've come from and to as well. I was meant to be going, as you know, Cammy, but life got in the way, so I gave my tickets away. And that was good that you got on the stage, Cammy. I'm not jealous at all, mate. That's good, you bastard.
Yeah, listen, it was a privilege. And
Can I ask something? How
of
come you get
course,
seats? How come every time I do a live show, I've got to stand and my old legs get sore and I get cramp and lumbago, and then I looked on Twitter news, they're all sitting in these comfy seats.
well, I'm not just saying this in a bad way, right? But obviously, if we take you out of it, then the average age of the guys on stage drops significantly. So it's kind of like it's what you've seen the Flick Clermont introduction of bringing in the younger guys, trying to maintain quite a youthful age and stuff as well, and then
Right,
taking it from there. So
folk aren't going to buy this, Cammy.
they aren't,
Even
mate. They aren't,
even
mate. People have seen the shape of me. They know I can't stand up for too long either. Do you know what I mean? So I totally sympathise. Yeah, but as you rightly say, Andy, we did record the show with our pal Grant Snedden, his Journey to Fame show, and it's on our Patreon site shortly, folks. If you want to jump on and listen to just Andy and I just reminiscing, like I say, having that throwback to 1995 and the aura of it, and then obviously we'd already had a year of Brian Laudrup by that point, so we were just absolutely spoiled. And I think, as we mentioned in the show, actually, Andy, there wasn't, or there hasn't, I should say, been a player unveiling that for me is comparable to that,
nah.
because I mean, it was Gazamania.
Yep, guys, I mean, yeah, been and gone. Different times, right enough nowadays. Everything's done online, but that was something special.
Yeah, it certainly was. Right, well, listen, Andy, we're here to obviously talk about the Hibs game on Saturday afternoon at Ibrox. I think it's fair to say, as much as we've been talking about, we're all glad to get back into action stuff. This is us now entering really the kind of final furlong. We've got 4 league games to go because obviously we had to have the rearranged game against Dundee because their pitch is a swamp. And we've got 4 games left to go before the split. Obviously, we have Hibs on Saturday, and then we've got the Old Firm game next Sunday. But the reason as to why I wanted to talk to you, probably short and long vision, was because um, it's going to be an interesting run in. I think it's fair to say we've not been involved in a title race for a good long while now, and I think that it's, I don't want to use the cliche of, we've got 9 League Cup finals, and hopefully, touch wood, we've got the semi-final of the Scottish Cup and then the final of the Scottish Cup. But it's the home stretch, and if we were to ever have a blip, I think I'm quite pleased, Andy, in the fact that it just seems to have. I'm hoping that it's happened now. Obviously, results against Motherwell, Benfica, the sake of the rearranged game against Dundee obviously puts that lot back at the table in what I hope, touch wood, is a very short term and artificial situation. But it's why I wanted to speak to you about it specifically, because again, you always remain calm, you're always positive about things.
Dear.
Yeah, well, behind closed doors, but we just need to keep our powder dry as we go through this run in. If we do have blips, we need to be able to recover from them. It can't be crisis point game on game now, even though everyone is enormous, and the 3 points are just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as we go.
Aye, that kind of speaking out loud rationale and appeal for Cam, we need to remember it, right? Tomorrow's important in that what happens tomorrow will echo next week against Celtic, because this might sound bonkers, right? But
I'm assuming that you mean Saturday, in case people are listening to this.
Saturday, sorry.
Unless you're going early. I mean,
no. I do get an early, but not a day.
Space.
I'm not calling it Mullen. Sorry, Saturday. I forgot that. Do you know why it is? Because it's bank holiday. I've got that Friday feeling and it's Thursday. So, the game on Saturday will echo into the week after against Celtic, because if we win against Hibs, and it doesn't go to plan against Celtic, we're still alive. And this is the thing we've got to keep sight of. Me and you, Cammy, can remember Helicopter Sundays. You mentioned there how long it's been since we've been in a proper title race, but it's been 13 years. There's boys in the Union Bears don't know what this is like, right? And that's no sense saying, listen to your old feather. It's a case of it's never over till it's over. And we're talking about the last half hour of the season, Cammy, if we're reminiscing here.
the last 180 seconds of the season, to be honest.
Well, that's true. I forgot about the film game. So we've got to take it game by game. My honest opinion is that this title, and the cup for that matter, will be decided by injuries. That's how tight I think it is between the two teams. And that's what worries me a wee bit, because we've just lost a wee bit of edge in the attacking areas with the loss of Cortez. McCausland's starting to wobble a wee bit in terms of injury. It looks like you've got Sterling as a makeshift right winger. And we're kind of hobbling. No, I wouldn't say hobbling through. We've been playing really well, but it's just no as comfy in terms of team selection and bench selection as we had it a couple of weeks ago when we were really, really firing on all cylinders. So there's going to be a lot of emotions. There's going to be ups and downs. We are going to get slaps to the face, and we're going to have to, as a support, make sure that we stand up and be counted, because we need our players in the park to be it, and it's hell of a lot easier for them to do that when we do it with them. 10 league games to go, but it doesn't matter. It starts with Saturday, starts with Hibs. But a tough game. Looks as if they've got a full squad to choose from. They've got Boyle back. I think their striker, the Dutch guy, he's more or less back as well. So they've got a full team. They're a strange team, Hibs, in that I quite like playing them because they don't sit in. So I say credit to Nick Montgomery because he's brave enough to do it. Sometimes it looks naive, but he's brave enough to do it, and I think it should be applauded within the Scottish game that he's got that mindset, and the club are happy enough for him to be that wee bit more open than maybe a traditional Hibs team coming to Rangers, coming to Ibrox would be. But that gives us opportunity because it allows us to exploit that, and obviously it's far easier, or it should be far easier for us to play through that. The problem is that against Motherwell, they had a go. They played high up the park. They were pressing us for the start, and we couldn't really handle it. And that ultimately was what tipped the balance in their favour over the 90 minutes. So this is going to be a tough game. Celtic will have one eye on it as well, just as we would if they were playing them at Easter Road or Parkhead. More in hope than expectation. But the Saturday Sunday thing cannot be discounted. I want to get the points on the board, go top of the league again, hand over the pressure to Celtic. They go to Livingston, should be a comfortable victory. But what we've seen from them is that they've got question marks to answer. They've got question marks on them as well. And I just don't know how they're reacting to the pressure, because just as it's been 13 years since the last true title race, they've not got a player in that squad that's had a true challenge at this end of the season. You know, when we won 55, it was done and dusted so early that we can't call that a title race, to be honest. It was a title race about January. So their players need to handle that pressure, and we need to apply it.
Yeah, I think, did you say there was 10 league games to go? It was only 9. I just wanted to confirm that in case anyone listened to this from, maybe their side was like,
the funny thing,
conspiracy here? How are they getting an extra game for another 3 points that we're not getting?
Let the listeners in. We even spoke at this before the game, before the pod, and said how many games are left. We clarified it with each other. We nodded heads, and then I get it fucking rang.
Dementia. Anyway, yeah, listen, I think it's interesting because when we talk about that game against Motherwell, right? So you're right, they did come out, they did, for want of a better term, just kind of outthink us a little bit. And it was disappointing, right? There's no getting away from that. Obviously, they then get to Tynecastle, and we got a favour out of that as well. So it's neck and neck, right? And I don't think there is any such thing as any guarantees any longer. The Hibs game now, following on obviously from the Scottish Cup quarter final at Easter Road, was just a bizarre game. I don't know what Montgomery was thinking in terms of, certainly his players were fired up for it. We saw that, the 2 red cards and the way how the game kind of eventually panned out and stuff as well was relatively straightforward after being somewhat chaotic in pieces. But I think what we need to be able to try and do as well, because we've mentioned the players, we've mentioned their players, and I think what we also need to be able to try and do, Andy, is for what we can do at home. And again, I apologise now for using the age-old cliches, but you and I have seen successful Rangers teams winning leagues because we've taken care of our home fixtures.
Mm-hmm.
And since our next 2 are at home, I think we've got to be going for the 6 points. Now, again, we know that things can change, and personally, and I think I said this before actually, when I was talking to you about it, was I actually believe that the Old Firm games will just take care of themselves. I think we'll win at Ibrox, and I think they'll probably win at Parkhead, so those 2 kind of more or less nullify each other. But as surprised as I was that we didn't have to do the Dundee replay in between these 2 games, I think we just have to show that we've got a strong determination to be able to get it. We're not going to allow the international break to allow any kind of degree of complacency or anything like that to come in, because we have faith in the manager that he will regroup the players, get them back focused on what has to happen. And I think for me, I'm all for a strong start against Hibs, but for the aforementioned issue regarding injuries, because I think you're right, by the way, I do think it might come down to last man standing in terms of who's fit in the running. But I think for me, being able to go out and put a strong performance against Hibs, we've got a week to recover, and then the Old Firm game. And whether that puts a marker on it or not, we will have to wait and see. We'll obviously cover that next week in due course. But I think Hibs are not going to come and just do us a favour. They've got zero reason for that to happen. They've obviously got their own interest that they need to be able to try and get out of Saturday's game, and I don't think it'll be as easy as I'm hearing a lot of people thinking it will be. They need to be able to try and secure top 6. So it's still going to be, I think for me, quite a tough and awkward challenge.
Hibs have their moments. They should have beat Celtic at Easter Road, 100%. When they went a goal ahead, they had a couple of gilt-edged chances to kill it, and they never. I'm not even looking at Celtic game yet, Cam. I've got to be honest, because the consummate professional I am. No, it's just the fact that I can't get over the fact that we need to win on Saturday to make sure that because if we get beat and then Celtic win this Sunday, and then they've got a chance to really stretch the gap at Ibrox, we've been in that position too often where we've been playing on the cusp of losing touch with them. You think back to the games under Gio when Ramsey scored at Ibrox. We were having it was a must-win game for us, whereas they've got that less pressure because they can play their game knowing that a draw will do them. If they get beat, then they've still got a wee bit of wriggle room. It was do or die for us. And what I don't want to happen is that we go into that game next week at Ibrox, and a week on Saturday at Ibrox with that unnecessary pressure. The thing about the injuries is that they've got players coming back. They've got McGregor. McGregor is absolutely integral to the way they play. They've got Hatate, who I think is a great player for them, and that would make a big difference to them. It's a big ask for them to come back in one game, two game, and then straight into a game like that against a Rangers team that hopefully is firing. So this is where I mean about the injuries. We need to keep our key players fit. We need to get a bit of luck. We getting a couple of back. It'd be great to see Seema back for any games in the split after the split. But even at that, he's going to be a bit part player. It would be great to keep Roofe fit for the last 20 minutes of games because he's a first choice sub, if you want to call it that. And if we Yilmaz can get back and stay fit, then I think he offers more overall to the left back position than Barisic. And I know there's a lot of wailing and gnashing their teeth about Barisic coming back, but Barisic should be good enough to be playing in these games. And I'm not saying that as like he's great. I'm saying that and that he does have attributes. His quality of ball into the box is 100 times better than Yilmaz. They're two different types of left backs, but we shouldn't be sitting here saying, "Oh, it's a complete utter disaster." He's back. He should be able to handle these. It's down to him, unfortunately, right? But he, on paper, should be a perfectly acceptable replacement left back. And this is the thing: we can't write him off or get on his back if he makes a bad pass. I just want him to do his job and go out for Rangers in a high.
I'm definitely gonna have to start messaging you before the games because the Old Firm game's a week on Sunday. It's not a week on Saturday. You're. I'm buying you a calendar for
Jesus.
your
Whenever it
your
is.
springtime.
Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Whenever it
the
is,
listeners,
whatever.
give
You
the
don't
listeners
even
some
drink.
credit. They know when it is.
Right. Okay. Okay. I'll
The
do that.
weekend. I'll call it the weekend now.
Right. I keep yourself right. Listen, I couldn't agree more. I think I've seen people talking about, well, could we play Sterling at left back? And I remember after Kilmarnock and Barris has had a horror show, right? I totally get it. And that is something I want to talk to you about in just a moment in terms of, again, this run-in and players who are probably coming to the end of their time at the club. But I remember saying that after Kilmarnock of Barisic. I would have played him against Motherwell at home. Now, obviously, I said that in the build-up to the game, not realising we were going to drop points. But the reason why I said it, Andy, was because you're totally right. We still need to be able to rely on some of these guys. And I still think that there's plenty that Borna can provide us. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, player as Yilmaz, because he's not. He's never going to be, because they are totally different types of player. They just happen to play in the same position. But it's also about we need cover within some of these spots for when we do pick up injuries or when we have seen some fatigue start to settle in. John Lundstrom, I think it's fair to say, has been immense for us, but in the course of the last few games, the tiredness has crept in and it's probably facilitated a few mistakes that he normally wouldn't make, right? But this is not necessarily about saying that we need to have rotation within this. I think he's going to try and go for his best 11 that's
Yep,
fit.
100%.
But he also has to be able to protect some of those guys to make sure that, again, where feasible and where it's allowable, we can give them some rest and potential recovery. Borna, I'm fairly certain will play against Hibs on Saturday, and that's a game that he's played in a lot. It's a game that he's excelled in before, and it's at home. I don't think he should have any problems with it. Uh, but we have to be able to try and rely on guys like him and guys like Roofe. There's no getting away from that.
9 cup finals, even latterly in the last 5 games, you've seen Clement. He's no changed the centre halves for a start, right? So he's kind of signalling that this is the business end. We played our best, my first choice team. Okay, he's done a wee bit of rotation in terms of protecting players, but if he feels he doesn't need to protect the players, either the players at capacity, full capacity, then he's playing them. And on Barisic, right, and I'm coming back to him for a reason, because we've got the spectre of that game at Parkhead. I mean, the 4-0 or whatever it was, when we get stuffed at Parkhead, remember? And he had an absolute annihilation for the wing. That was a turning point for a lot of fans, where they just says, I don't want to see Borna Barisic playing again. It's never been a realistic proposition to say that, for a number of reasons. But I'll tell you one thing I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to Barisic taking corners instead of Yilmaz, right? Alone,
Yeah,
right? Because we
yeah, I'll give you
Yilmaz's
that.
corners are absolutely they're lamentable, really. So what I'm trying to say here is not a defence of Barisic, it's a defence of his selection, and that he should be able to handle it. And he's
It's a
not that
defence.
bad. And
It's a
see,
defence of the resources we have.
of course, and the Kilmarnock thing, this is a defence of him, actually. As angry as I was in the moment when he caused that free kick, 999 times out of 1,000, the referee gives that. You see it all the time and you see, oh, that's so self referee, but they always, always, always give that. I thought it was really, really unlucky that he had a fucking diddy of a referee and said, no, I'll actually no give that. So I knew what he was doing that night. I think we all knew what he was doing. We've seen it 100 times before. It's always given. That night was unfortunate. It went against him. He just needs to be better. He just needs to be sure of himself, and he'll contribute between now and the end of the season. If we win anything, much like the Essers and other players that derided, it'll take contribution for absolutely everybody, no matter how small.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because one of the things that I remember that Commandant game as well was we spoke about the relationship. We talked about Barisic and Cortez because obviously he was playing in front of that, and there wasn't a relationship there. Now, very feasibly, it could be Barisic and Silva who played because
Mm-hmm.
again, I think we could see something from him there as well. Um, and I think that we're just going to have to. I'm assuming that the manager will be trying to develop that in between, getting the players back and Saturday coming along and stuff because he realises the likelihood is that Redvan won't feature. But it's interesting to me that you mentioned that earlier on, Andy. Guys like Kamar Roofe, etc. Now, I as a fan base, right, we can always be quite transactional. We kind of live in the moment, and as you rightly say, people like that, get him out there now because he walked back to Glasgow for Kilmarnock and all of that kind of stuff, right? Because again, we're annoyed at what happened, but that's that for me is a byproduct of the stress of the running, right? Because we're all on tenterhooks, we're all nervous about things, and we're all thinking about it. And you and me, and I can guarantee the vast majority of people listen to this, it creeps back into your head no matter what you're doing. Every 6 seconds, I think we're thinking about, you know, what happens if we drop points here, or can we put out a strong performance here, or what goes on? Because we're going to live and breathe every single minute of these remaining games. However, when you're talking about guys like Barisic, I know he's been discussed with a move to Turkey. I think that does look like it's going to bear fruit, and it looks like it could be away to Turkey at the end of the season. Kamar Roofe, I'm fairly sure, will also be leaving. Um, we still need to be able to utilise these guys when they
Uh-huh.
can, and I think Kamar Roofe spoke really well recently about, he's open about the idea. He's never going to come out, Andy, right, and say, well, I think I should get another contract. I think Rangers should do this. I think what he said is, he played the right game in terms of it's on to the club and the manager. I don't want to leave because the minute he says I'm going to start looking elsewhere, people will be like, oh,
Yeah,
he's
his head's
already
turned.
looking. He's already looking his head's turned, etc. So he said I think a little bit the kind of party line, and I've got no problem with that. Both of these guys in a year, 2 years, 10 years will be remembered for what they gave us. Anderlecht, 55, the Scottish, Scottish, all of these kind of things that have kind of just been a part of their legacy at the club. But now they've got, as we've now confirmed, 11 games left within which they can contribute in some degree. Might be massive, it might be quite small, but at the end of the day, they've now got a chance to be able to go out potentially as treble winners.
I'm going to say a couple of names, and these are players that should be looking at themselves and saying, I can be the difference here, because we're going to need every ounce for everybody. You've got Scott Wright, you've got Rabbi Matondo, you've got, who else have we got? Maybe even Ben Davies if we get an injury in centre half, and Balogun, you could pull into that. They're players that and young McCausland, if he comes back in, they're players that if we can get a wee bit extra out of them, more than their average, we should be all right. Because Scott Wright's underperformed his whole Rangers career, let's be honest. He's a couple of high points, but they've been so few and far between that, I'm very, very cynical about him. Rabbi Matondo, so much pace, so much ability to actually hurt teams. He needs to bring it. He needs to bring it and bring it fast, and he can be a contributor. Nico Raskin was the other one I was thinking. That's who it was. He's been out injured. Lot of promise, lot of expectation. Has he fulfilled it? Flashes here and there. He needs to come in and become a winner with Rangers, because if he does, then he's got a Rangers career. So there's a
And
lot to
and
read
and,
on
it,
this.
and in that point, sorry to interrupt, because I think
Right.
it's a great point. But in that space, that's also where we're talking about guys who, for me, and this is going to sound as if I'm giving him a massive discredit. I don't mean to do that, right? Because actually, I don't like doing that with players in general. I really genuinely don't. But the three guys that you just mentioned there, for me, the first thing I think about is their energy. It is their ability to get forward with the ball. Raskin will always move side to side. He'll always be mobile. And so when we've obviously mentioned a lot about some of the tiredness
Uh-huh.
and the players looking leggy and stuff as well, these guys are good guys to bring in when hopefully the result is put to bed, but maybe we've still got 20 minutes, 30 minutes on the clock. And then you say to them, listen, go on there, keep the ball. I don't need you
Make an
making
impact.
yeah. I don't need you. I don't even. I suppose making an impact, but making an impact in terms of just go out there and make it easier on the other guys.
Mm-hmm.
Take the ball off them. Take it for a run. Just keep a hold of it. Just make sure that you cause them the opposition problems, and it just probably takes a wee bit of pressure off everyone else who started the game. And that's important, by the way. Same thing with Kamar Roofe. Kamar Roofe can take the ball and he can be in dangerous positions. And even if he's not necessarily got the ball at his feet or the ball coming into him, he's still dragging players away. He's still making defenders think about where he is and what he has to be able to try and, what he has to be able to try and create if it's for other people, not necessarily just him getting the end of it. And Kamar Roofe has done a lot for Rangers in that regard.
Well, bet it's reminded us of why Kamar Roofe's is almost still worth hanging about as a 15-20 minute sub. So we know about his injuries. We know the situation. We know he's not durable. We know he's not a realistic proposition for big wages next season. But by Christ, I don't think I'd rather have another striker to pick off the bench if we're needing goals in the last 20 minutes, because there's going to be scenarios in the next 9 games in the league that you're going into 20 minutes and it's going to be high stakes, needing a goal. Next goal wins. And this is where I refer back to, I think we've lost a wee bit of edge in terms of attacking play here because we've had injuries. But Scott Wright has got pace, he can drive at players. He just isn't there enough, and he's the most frustrating player that we've got just now. Matondo's the same. These are players that have to come off the bench or start for that matter on occasion and carry their weight as a Rangers player, because you don't win titles without, I was going to say bit part players, these aren't the bit part players, without all your players contributing. It's a must. It's a must. And we've rung Lundstrom, we've rung Tavernier so far this year, Botland, who else? Cantwell to a degree. So but we're getting what we can out of a lot of players. We need the others to step up to the mark. And sounds all that big cliche, Cammy. Who doesn't think you need to have all your players in top form to win the league? But they need to do it. They need to bring it. And I'm sure the fans will as well. This is the other thing. Come on, makes a big play about the synergy being back. And to be honest, I was looking at pictures the other day, right? My nephew, he went to his first Rangers game 9 years ago. It was against Cowdenbeath. And the pictures are outside the ground, and it's me and him and my dad and my mum and all that. I remember that day. It was dull, it was bleak, it was damp. The place was half dead, obviously because of the circumstances we've got. To see where we are now and to feel and see the vibrancy in a match day, it's what being a Rangers fan's all about. No, every football fan gets to experience what we experience, Cammy. This is a thing we often take for granted. So the players need to capitalise it, because these moments, they come along more often at Rangers, but they don't come along that often. So if we were to do something special this year, given where we were August, September, it would be mammoth. It would go down in history, and it would be quite unbelievable. And this is why, as we get to the business end of the season, it becomes more. It's almost like if I were to blow it now, it would be painful normally, but even more painful given we've dragged ourselves back from where we were. Because there's no way we'd be sitting talking. I think we'd be sitting talking in these terms, Cammy, in August, September.
No,
No
not
way.
not at all, not at all. And again, I think that that's where you're absolutely right in terms of those players who can come in because and I'm confident the manager will do this by the way because I've got a lot of faith in him and he's when you and I are not sitting here old in the old in the tooth as we are to say that the manager's just come in and it's been expected. The guy has worked absolute miracles and he's built faith and he's created faith and trust in him because he's been able to have that consistency that you mentioned and that turnaround as well. And I think he will be able to speak to these guys who maybe on the periphery is probably the nice way to be able to say it and go, whether you're a starter, whether you're a substitute, whether you've featured regularly, whether you've not played that much, it doesn't make a difference. It needs everything. I mean, it's everything from everyone, as we say, but I think he will motivate these guys, whether they're going to be at Rangers post summer or not. I think he's going to be able to say to them, you are, to cause and effect, 11 games away from glory.
Immortality. He's got it right. I'm going to keep coming back to him, and he should be. Somebody should be sitting him down and saying, Scott, you're on the brink of time of your life. This is it. Because 55 is great, and I think he was delighted to be here. But coming in January and that title race, that was no far off a fait accompli for him. This is the time of his life as a professional football player because if he achieves what we should achieve this year and he plays his part, he's not going to have a higher spot in his career. That's a fact.
No, he's not.
And
The Europa League, the Scottish Cup, 55, and potentially whatever happens this season, folk will look back at Scott Wright, and I think Scott Wright could hopefully, and I'm keeping everything crossed that he can say this and go, look, I won a decent haul of medals at Rangers, and again, like you say, some of these players that I think can say that and lift their heads up with it as well. Just before we finish up, Andy, you mentioned there about the fans and stuff. So let's hear your message to some of these supporters that haven't lived through this. John being one of them as well, because I'm sure the excitement will just ramp up for him. But again, you mentioned there the 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds who, by and large, won't really know what this is all about. We have to make sure that Ibrox, for every game now, irrespective of the opposition, whether it's going to be Hibs, because again, the Old Firm game will take care of itself, but everybody has to play their part now. Everyone has to be able to try and do that. And the manager's talked about that synergy. I'm a big believer, Andy, in that. I think it's great that you can support your club and you can do all the rest of it, but when your club and the players and what you see in the park is letting you down, I think that's a tough thing to generate. But we're absolutely not in that space any longer. I think you saw that after the Benfica game at Ibrox, where you saw so many waiting to cheer the team off and stuff. We absolutely have faith in these players. We need to make sure that we show that really from the first whistle.
So you want me to launch into an Edgar-esque speech here?
Well, it'd be nice. Yeah, it'd be nice. If you could throw in a few no surrenders and all of that kind of stuff in there as well, then that's what it's
we
come
are
down
the
to.
people. So the first line I've got here is stay for 90 minutes. Deliberate pause. Because I know this, I make a joke at on Twitter every time, and it has get better, but it's got better because folk are focusing on it, and there's been a wee bit of peer pressure applied social media wise. We need to stay for 90 minutes regardless. See, for 2 goals down, we stay and we keep behind the team because miracles do harm. They don't harm in an empty stadium, unfortunately. That's a fact. So the message to my younger Padawans that are sitting there saying, "Oh, I've never done this, Andy," because I'm sure they're looking to me now, Cammy, for words of wisdom.
You're more the Alec Guinness Obi-Wan Kenobi than the Ewan McGregor, I think it's fair to say.
Maybe you are R2D2 then. What I was going to say is that I wouldn't be condescending as to say, look, this is what you're going to find, but basically this is it. This is what it's all about, and it's as close as you'll ever be being a player because you've got to keep your nerve. When you think about how nervous we get before games, Cammy, and you think forward to the next Sunday or Saturday or Friday or Monday, whatever day the game's on, Celtic game, the heart starts to beat faster. what the hell must it be like for a player? And you've got to enjoy it, but you've got to believe as well. This is the thing. If things go against us and we stay alive in the title, and that means we go a point behind, we go 2 points behind, whatever, you've got to keep believing because as Marvin said, there's nothing simpler. If you don't believe, and I'm talking about in life, never mind just the football, if you don't believe it's going to happen, it won't happen. So Clement's got his believing. I think the players believe him as well. And we've just got to keep the heat if things don't go to plan. If things go swimmingly, it all takes care of itself. Where the real challenge comes for in this running is when you've got the moments where you're like, shit, oh no. When the heart sinks and the stadium goes silent and the air's sucked out it. That's the moments where you've got to actually just grip yourself and say, right, we get up, we go again, because that's what wins the titles. We've seen it time and time again. So I don't know if that was Rocky-esque enough for you, Cammy, but there you go. Keep believing.
Brilliant. And listen, when we win the treble, I'm deliberately
Well,
going to come
who's
back
been
to
saying we might win a treble for long and weary? Who's been
the
saying that?
manager. No, you have. Listen, I get it, and totally. And listen, when we win the treble, I'm going to come back and I'm going to lift that little excerpt of that speech there, Andy. I'm going to put it on like
Do you want me to sing it?
An
Keep
Instagram
believing.
story that gets shared about of all these motivational quotes and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, here's the Andy McGowan 2024. He got us over the line,
That's it.
and it started with a preview against Hibs.
And you could mix it with what we used to say about Beale. We're
Yeah,
fucking
you can.
hopeless.
Yeah,
All is
always
lost.
back Andy for the long run. Do you know what I mean? Right, well, listen, that will do us for this week. If you're heading along to Ibrox on Saturday, and it is Saturday, Andy, Saturday, make sure and
Write
enjoy
that down.
yourself. Get right behind the team. Don't be like Andy. I totally appreciate, he's one of the biggest Rangers fans I know, but going to a game 24 hours beforehand, it's not really necessary. Just as long as you lend your voice and your support in the stadium, I think is the most important thing. But if you do want to hear more from us, and certainly why would you not, then please jump over to our Patreon site, patreon.com/heart and hand. Thank you to our extra show sponsors, Zenith Coins. Please check them out at zenithcoins.com. Thank you to our executive producers, Mike Lee and Paul Myers. But most importantly, thank you to the Winston Churchill of speeches that's just been delivered there. We're going to be fighting it on all fronts. And even though he's got no idea what day it is and when Rangers are playing, Andy, you're a superb guest, and thank you as always for your insight.
I have nothing to offer except blood, sweat, toil, and tears. Who said that, Cammy?
Oh, Charlie Chaplin.
No, Winston Churchill.
Oh, well, there you go.
I thought you were going to call me Obi-Wan McGowan. That would be better. Seamus, man.
There you go. Exactly. In a galaxy a far, far away, Ayrshire. Right, listen, that will do us for this week. David will be back on Monday with the flagship. And as I say, please jump on over to our Patreon site if you'd like to hear more from us, because why wouldn't you? We'll speak to you again on Monday, folks. Have a brilliant bank holiday weekend. Have a great Easter, and we'll speak to you again soon. Thank you.